In the middle of the icy Barents Sea, where waves are as high as walls and winds howl as if they want to swallow everything, a mysterious empire is rising. From the ashes of the bloody war started by Russia, Norway suddenly holds in its hands red gold, a creature once considered a scourge of the ocean. Each one costs up to $600. A 20-ton container is worth more than $1.2 million. But not everyone can touch that treasure. To snatch them from the frozen sea, fishermen must gamble with the most precious thing, their lives. That is the king crab, the enemy of the ocean, but also the desire of thousands of fishermen in the Barents Sea, where money, blood, and ice blend into one. Granddiscover. How 10 tons of king crab worth $1,200,000 are hauled from Alaska's deadly Bering Sea. Between 1961 and 1969, the Soviet Union conducted a daring experiment.
Товарищи, быстрее! Почти готово!
Releasing more than 1.5 million king crabs from the region, the initial goal was to build a frozen seafood industry, an economic weapon during the Cold War. Every year, king crabs migrate dozens of kilometers, reproducing 4 times faster than native crabs, making control nearly impossible. They cross the border, flood into Norwegian waters, and are sarcastically called the Red Army of the Ocean by the people. No one expected that this Cold War experiment would create a new economic war between the Nordic countries half a century later. In 2022, when Russia launched a war in Ukraine, the entire world seafood market was shaken. Sanctions from the U.S., the European Union, and Japan immediately hit the Russian seafood industry, including king crab. Before the war, Russia was one of the world's largest suppliers of king crab, exporting hundreds of millions of dollars a year to the U.S. and Asia. But within months, The doors to this lucrative market were closed. Russian fishermen and businesses are in a deadlock. Crates of king crab, which could sell for thousands of dollars, are piled up at the port with no outlet. This is an opportunity for Norway, a neighboring country that owns the same king crab resources in the Barents Sea. With Russia out of the picture, Norway becomes the only alternative for global importers. In just 1 year, Norway's exports hit an unprecedented record, pushing the entire industry to the milestone $1 billion, a number that no one dared to think of before the war. But not everyone sees this as a victory. Many Norwegian experts warn that the country is getting rich on an invasive species. Russia accuses Norway of robbing the Soviet Union of resources. Question that makes viewers think, can a billion-dollar empire be built on the foundation of a biological experiment? And the war still continues. From a Cold War experiment and an accidental push of modern warfare, Norway has turned a species once considered a threat into a billion-dollar gold mine in the middle of the ice sea. But those huge numbers only reflect half the truth. To generate that profit, thousands of fishermen have to rush into the harshest seas on the planet, where each trip is a gamble between life and death. And to understand why king crabs are called red gold of the ocean, we must witness the very way humans wrestle them from the cold sea. Five-meter waves, ice on the deck, and every taut cable can kill. Just a moment of carelessness, a slip, a broken chain, is enough to be swept to the bottom of the cold sea. Each giant crab pot weighs more than 600 pounds, filled with bait herring and mackerel, and is lowered to depths of more than 300 meters. Steel cables that can withstand thousands of pounds of force whistling in the wind. That sound is the heartbeat of the entire ship, both a soundtrack of hope and a warning of death awaits below. Sailors work nearly 20 hours a day in the midst of blizzards and darkness. They do not sleep, just take turns pulling pots, checking nets, ice dam, and tie the seat belt around your waist. According to the Norwegian Maritime Safety Administration, the accident rate in this profession is 7 times higher than in the normal fishing industry. In 2022 alone, at least 4 fishermen died and 15 were seriously injured, with severed fingers, broken bones, and frostbite. But for them, that risk is part of the game. In the battle between man and nature, the Bering Sea always wins. But it is this invincibility that makes fishermen more determined, because the greater the danger, the greater the reward. many days of fighting with the rough waves and the biting cold, the ship's freezer was finally full. It is the treasure that fishermen have snatched from the sea. Each crab is the result of blood, sweat, and sleepless nights, the echoing cheers. It is the reward for days drifting on the icy sea.
Here we are, last day of the trip. Weather's finally come up. Looks like we still got a few crab to catch. John and Danny, Peter, we on controls, and Chris getting his throwing hook ready.
Statistics show that king crab fishing in this area was once considered the most dangerous job on the planet. Every winter, when temperatures dropped to -20 degrees and winds gust over 100 kilometers per hour, the cold sea claims more lives.
Riders, the pot. Roger! Count was 3-1. Last day of this first trip. So we're still on crab for our 40 pots. Hopefully we'll reach our goal.
In luxury restaurants in Tokyo, New York, or Dubai, king crab is served as a luxury dish with a price that makes many people dizzy. However, on the deck of a ship where the Bering Sea rages, to bring these red treasures ashore, fishermen must pay with sweat, blood, and sometimes even their lives.
Monster crab.
It is this terrible difference between the lavish banquet table and the deck of the death ship that makes the fishermen accept the risk. Because for them, each crab pulled up is not only money, but also proof of their courage in the battle with the ocean.
Got so much water flow here. We're going to try and relieve the pressure on the tank so we can get the crab.
King crabs, creatures once brought to the Barents Sea by the Soviet Union as an experiment, have now become the basis of an industry worth hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Behind the glamour is a question that divides Norway. Is the country exploiting a resource or harboring a dangerous invasive species? On the political front, tensions with Russia are growing. Moscow accuses Norway of stealing Soviet biological assets, claiming that the current crab population is descended from those released by Russia in the 1960s. War created the king crab empire, but it is the sea that determines how long it will last. This story is not just about money or risk, but a reminder that when humans touch nature with ambition, the ocean will always claim its share, sooner or later. On the other side of the Pacific, another disaster is rising. More 260,000 farmed salmon escaped after a fierce storm. They turned the ocean into $1 billion battle for survival. Follow Granddiscover to watch the next episode. Washington's Salmon Invasion. 260,000 escaped fish spark a $1 billion ecological disaster, where you will see how one small accident can shake the whole ecosystem, and why sometimes what man creates is something that nature cannot forgive. Thank you for watching and supporting our channel.